The sun had just started to dip over the distant hills of Redstone Creek, painting the skies in streaks of orange and rose gold when Samuel Hart, a man of 38 with hands scarred by years of ranch work, stood on the wooden platform of the town's lonely train station. His hat was pressed low, his jaw tense. The dust clung to his boots, and a faint wind stirred the edges of his long brown duster coat. Around him, the chatter of townsfolk hummed, whispers about the rancher who had finally decided to take a mail-order bride. To them, Samuel was a man of few words, known more for his strength and silence than for any sign of companionship. The townsfolk had always pitied him since his wife and newborn had died during the winter blizzard. 5 years ago, they said no man should have to bury both love and hope on the same day. But grief doesn't care what's fair. He had spent the years since building his ranch, working from dawn till stars came out, chasing away the emptiness with work and whiskey, until one quiet night sitting by the fire, he'd opened a folded advertisement sent from the Lovewell agency, a company promising new beginnings for men too lonely and women too desperate. Mail-order brides for honorable men of the frontier, it said. And Samuel, though he'd laughed at it at first, had written back after 2 weeks of staring at the ad. He didn't ask for beauty or fortune, only honesty, hard work, and someone who could stand the silence of wide-open land. Now, months later, the train's distant whistle echoed down the valley, and Samuel's heart tightened. A puff of steam billowed from behind the pine ridge as the locomotive came chugging around the bend, a beast of iron and smoke roaring into the platform. People gathered, waiting for letters, goods, and stories from back east. Samuel took off his hat, running his calloused hand through his gray-streaked hair. "God help me," he muttered. When the train hissed to a stop, the passengers began stepping off, a mother with a crying child, a preacher, a few merchants with trunks, and then silence. The town's murmurs fell away as a single woman stepped down from the train, her boots touching the ground like a whisper. She wore a burgundy traveling dress that shimmered softly under the evening light. Her gloved hands clutched a leather bag, and her hat, large, feathered, and regal, cast a shadow over her porcelain face. Samuel had expected someone timid, maybe a widow or a plain-faced girl looking for a new start. But this woman moved like someone who belonged nowhere and yet owned the ground she walked on. Her eyes, calm but distant, scanned the station until they stopped on him. "You must be Mr. Hart," she said softly, her voice steady but with an accent no one could quite place. Samuel nodded, caught between awe and confusion. "Yes, ma'am. Samuel Hart, and you must be Mrs., she interrupted. "Mrs. Clara Duval." That one word, Mrs., sent a ripple through the crowd. The men by the post office leaned closer, and even old Mrs. Jenkins from the bakery whispered something under her breath. A married woman arriving as a mail-order bride? That wasn't just odd, it was scandalous. Samuel frowned, his voice rough. "The agency told me you were single." Clara met his eyes, her expression unreadable. "They told me you were ready for a wife, so I suppose we were both misled." Behind them, the train hissed again, and the station master barked orders to clear the platform. Samuel felt the weight of the town's eyes, every whisper burning his ears. He gestured toward the wagon. "Well, Mrs. Duval, I can take your luggage and—" A sharp voice cut through the murmur. "Hold up there, Hart." It was Sheriff Cole Avery, tall, broad-shouldered, and proud of his badge. "You might want to hear what the telegraph office just got." He held up a folded paper, his eyes fixed on the newcomer. Samuel's brow furrowed. "What is it?" The sheriff unfolded the telegram. "A message from St. Louis says a woman named Clara Duval is wanted for questioning, accused of identity fraud and possible theft." The platform went silent. The only sound was the wind brushing through the pines. Clara didn't flinch. She didn't panic or plead. She simply stood taller, her chin lifting as her eyes locked with Samuel's. "They can say what they like," she said calmly, "but I didn't come here to run. I came here because your letter said you wanted someone who wouldn't be afraid of starting over." "Well, Mr. Hart, that's me." Samuel studied her for a long moment. There was something fierce in her eyes, a strength that didn't belong to a liar or a thief, but to someone who'd survived worse. He turned to the sheriff. "If she's wanted for questioning, not arrest, she stays. Until I hear the rest of it." The sheriff scowled. "Your call, Hart, but don't say I didn't warn you." He tipped his hat and walked off. As the crowd began to disperse, Samuel took Clara's bag, still unsure why he did it. Maybe it was pity, maybe curiosity, or maybe deep down the ache of loneliness had already decided for him. The wagon ride back to the ranch was long and silent. The land stretched endlessly, painted gold under the dying sun. Samuel's thoughts turned over and over. Every part of him screamed that he was making a mistake, but every glance at her calm, unreadable face made him question what mistake truly meant. When they finally reached the ranch, Clara stepped down and gazed at the wide fields, the lonely barn, the small wooden house by the stream. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. "Just dirt and fence posts," Samuel said. She smiled faintly. "No, it's freedom." That night, as Samuel sat on the porch, the stars spread above him like cold fire. Inside, Clara unpacked her few belongings, a small silver locket, a Bible, and a worn photograph of a little girl. Samuel didn't see it, but her eyes filled with tears as she traced the photo's edge. Soon, she whispered, "Mama will find you soon." Outside, Samuel lit his pipe, the scent of tobacco drifting into the night. Something about her words, her eyes, her quiet confidence, it all gnawed at him. He didn't believe she was who she claimed to be, but he also couldn't shake the feeling that she had come into his life for a reason deeper than a letter and a promise. The next morning, the town buzzed with rumors. By noon, word spread that someone had broken into the telegraph office, and the telegram about Clara Duval was missing. The sheriff suspected foul play, but out on the ranch, Samuel and Clara worked side by side, fixing fences, feeding horses, and pretending not to notice the tension that grew between them. One afternoon, while mending a gate, Samuel asked, "Why'd you really come here, Clara?" She looked at him, her hands still. "Because sometimes, the only way to survive the truth is to live a lie long enough for it to set you free." Before he could ask more, thunder rumbled across the sky and dark clouds rolled in. The storm hit fast, rain pelting, wind howling. They ran for the barn, soaked and breathless. Lightning flashed, and for the first time Samuel saw fear flicker in her eyes. Not fear of the storm, but of something or someone far worse. "Who are you running from, Clara?" he demanded over the roar of rain. She met his gaze, trembling. "Not who, Samuel, what?" The wind slammed the barn door shut behind them, and in that moment, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small silver badge. Samuel froze. "That's a U.S. Marshal's badge." She nodded. "I wasn't your bride, Mr. Hart. I was sent to find someone hiding in this town, and I think I just did." Samuel's blood ran cold. "Who?" Lightning flashed again, and her voice was barely a whisper. "You." The thunder drowned out everything else, and as the storm raged on, the lonely rancher realized that what had stepped off that train wasn't salvation. It was judgment.